The beautiful gardens here on the station are all kept by volunteers, and they've certainly put on a fine show. This signal box here is new too. It has a local stone base and a wooden cabin. The next stop's at what the Swanage Railway called the jewel in their crown, and that's the station at Corfe Castle. And there it is, you can just see the top of the castle there behind those trees. On the day the regular service from Swanage began, on the 20th of May 1885, there was a strong wind blowing and it was raining heavily. This prevented the Bournemouth steamer bringing in hundreds of extra visitors who wanted to witness the event. The first train of this new service left Swanage station at 7:30 a.m. Throughout the day the line opened, the people of Swanage braved the weather to celebrate the occasion. At George Butt's house there were bands to entertain them, there were many speeches and the church bells were rung. The buildings here at Corfe Castle were built of local stone, and the station was the only intermediary station on the original line. In 1972, when the line closed, the station buildings were acquired by the Dorset County Council. 20 years later, the council granted the new Swanage Railway a licence to restore the buildings, and they have been restored to resemble a typical Southern Region station of the 1950s. The first train to leave Swanage in 1885 comprised of 5 four-wheeled London and South Western coaches. These were hauled by a BT 240 World Tank locomotive. As the London and South Western wanted it to appear that the first official train carrying passengers along their new branch left from Swanage, the BT locomotive was shipped from Wareham to Swanage by horse-drawn trailer. I suppose this exercise would have got the line some extra publicity, but I wonder if it was truly worth the effort, as many locomotives must have been seen steaming in and out of Swanage station before the opening. The next stop is Norden, which is only a short distance further up the line from Corfe. Norden is as far as the line has been rebuilt so far, making it 9.6 kilometres or 6 miles long. The remains of Corfe Castle stand on a natural mound overlooking the strategic gap in the Purbeck Hills. And the word Corfe actually means cutting or pass. Historians agree that before this Norman castle was built, many other fortifications must have defended this area, but the remainder of these would have probably been concealed or destroyed, as this huge castle was built late in the 11th century. Here we are at Norden Station, and this is as far as the line goes for now. Norden was opened to the public in 1995, since when it has been a great success, especially with car owners, who to help keep this area's congested roads clear, park here and take the train. When the station first opened, 125 parking spaces were available. This soon proved to be insufficient, and in 1998 this number was doubled to 250. 3 years later saw the car park double in size again to be able to hold 500 cars and 8 coaches. So successful had this park and ride service become. Here we have a good shot of a standard Class 4 tank, 4MT 2640. This class of locomotive was the third most numerous of the British Rail standards, and they entered traffic in 1951. They were designed in the workshops in Brighton and were mostly built there, but Derby and Doncaster also built their share, Derby building 15 and Doncaster 10, of the 155 built altogether. This locomotive weighs 86 tonnes 13 hundredweight. Driving wheel diameter is 5 foot 8 inches. Coal capacity 3 tonnes 10 hundredweight. Water capacity 2,000 gallons. Boiler pressure is 225 pounds per square inch, and traction effort is 25,515 pounds at 85% boiler pressure. The standard Class 4s had good acceleration and were fast, making them ideal for commuter lines as well as branch lines. But here are some highlights. Following the Norman invasion, William the Conqueror built a castle here. Many kings throughout history used Corfe as a garrison, palace, hunting lodge, treasury, as well as a prison. In 1572, Queen Elizabeth sold the castle to Christopher Hatton. In 1642, at the beginning of the Civil War, the castle was owned by Charles I's Chief Justice Sir John Banks. By 1643, most of Dorset was held by parliamentary forces, but the castle remained a royalist stronghold. Sir John was with the king when parliamentary forces made their first clumsy attempt to take the castle by infiltrating a hunting party. This foolish move was easily defeated by Sir John's wife, Lady Mary, who heard of the plan and simply closed the castle gates. A 6-week siege began, but the parliamentary forces retreated as a royalist army drew nearer. A second siege of the castle began in 1645. By this time Sir John was dead, and it was again left for Lady Mary to command the garrison. But this time the castle fell to treachery. One of Lady Mary's officers, a Colonel Pitman, betrayed the defenders by making an arrangement with the parliamentary commander. He then told Lady Banks he was going to fetch reinforcements. When he returned, he had men with him, but they were parliamentary troops dressed as royalists. Once the traitor Pitman and his men were inside the castle, with the help from an attack by the forces outside, they were able to overcome the defenders. Because of Lady Banks and a small force's bravery, they were allowed to leave the castle. Lady Mary was also allowed to take her seals and the key to the castle gate. In 1646, Parliament passed a vote to demolish the castle, and the order, which took some months to complete, was carried out by a Captain Hughes of Lulworth. In 1982, the Banks family finally bequeathed the castle ruins to the National Trust, who still look after it today. What the volunteer on the left is carrying in his right hand is called a single line token, and there is only one of these for each stretch of the track. This has prevented many accidents, as no driver is allowed to steam along any stretch of the track without one of these in his cab. Here we are at Corfe Castle Station. The buildings here were built of local stone by a Southampton company called Bull & Son. Fortunately, when the line was closed, these buildings were bought by the local county council. At first, a computer company leased the property until 1992, when it ceased trading. The station was then leased to the Swanage Railway, who restored the buildings to appear as a 1950s Southern Region branch line station. Let's watch the Flopton Flyer as it makes its way to Norden. Here's another shot of the castle, which illustrates even better how imposing it still is today in its derelict state. This is a shot along one of Corfe Village's picturesque streets. There's a lot to see in the village too, should you want to wander around. There's a model village, and exhibitions, interesting shops. The village also boasts what was once the smallest town hall. Today it's a museum. There's also plenty of good places to grab something to eat, or to just enjoy a drink. So when the train stops at Corfe Station, why not take a look around? Let's go down again and take another look at the station. This is the Railway Museum, which is situated in what was once a goods shed, and it's well worth a visit. This 060 narrow gauge locomotive is called Secundus. It was built in 1874, and it's the only surviving example of engines built by the firm called Bellis and Seeking of Birmingham. This engine worked in Wareham, Dorset at the Fursbrook China clay quarry until 1955, when it was replaced by road transport. This photograph of local farmers outside Corfe Castle station was taken in 1911. They used these carts to bring milk to the station to be transported for the rest of its journey by train. This is another photograph from the museum's collection. This one was taken in 1905 and is of an Adams radial tank number 426. This photograph takes us back to Swanage Station in 1908. The trains you can see were troop trains ready to take the troops home after an annual camp. This shows the same scene today. The sidings which were on the right have become a bus station, and the signal box has moved from centre picture to the left. Before we leave the museum, let's have a quick look at two more photographs of Swanage Station taken before the First World War. Back on the station again, and we're waiting for the train that's approaching to take us back to Swanage. And here she is again. It's the British Rail Class 4MT 264T locomotive. To my knowledge, there are several other railway groups that have preserved 4MTs. Some I can remember are the Dart Valley Railway, North Yorkshire Railway, the Severn Valley Railway, the Bluebell Railway and Peak Railway, and I know there are more. We're off again on the return journey to Swanage.